All right, buckle up, history buffs, because today we're diving headfirst into the thick of it, Gibraltar in the Napoleonic Wars.
Ah, Gibraltar. A tiny rock with a huge EE story.
You got that right. Our listener wants to know, what was it about this seemingly insignificant piece of land that had Napoleon so riled up? Why all the fuss over this rock, as they put it?
Well, to understand that, you got to put yourself back in time. It's the early 1800s. Napoleon's ambition is spreading across Europe faster than wildfire.
And the seas. They're like the highway to power, right?
Yeah.
Control the seas, you control, well, everything. Trade routes, military movement.
Exactly, and that's where Gibraltar comes in smack dab at the mouth of the Mediterranean, like some kind of maritime bouncer.
Holding the keys to the whole sea. You're telling me this little spot held that much power?
Oh, geography is everything in this story. Gibraltar is the ultimate strategic choke point. See? Holding it. That gave the British a forward operating base, essentially, an unsinkable aircraft carrier centuries before such a thing existed.
Okay, I hear you on the forward operating base bit, but could you break it down for me? What exactly made it so vital?
Imagine this. You've got this base, right? But it's not just offensive. It allows you to project power right into enemy territory. Launch attacks, offer a safe harbor for your ships, constantly keep your enemy on edge. Gibraltar was all that and more for the British.
So it wasn't just about defending Gibraltar itself, but using it to go on the offensive as well.
You've got it. From Gibraltar, they could practically dictate the flow of everything in and out of the Mediterranean. Goods, troops, essential for Napoleon's war machine. Gibraltar was like a wrench in the gears.
Speaking of which, our listener included some fascinating stuff on blockades during the Napoleonic Wars. I'm guessing Gibraltar factored into that whole strategy, right?
Oh, absolutely. Blockades were the name of the game back then. It wasn't always about those big, flashy battles. It was about economically strangling your enemy. And to pull off a successful blockade, you needed a secure base of operations, a place to keep your ships supplied. Gibraltar was that lifeline.
It's almost like the ultimate pit stop for the Royal Navy. A safe haven when facing down Napoleon's fleet. I bet they were pretty grateful for that.
You bet. Ships could resupply, repair any damage, huddle up and strategize, all while staying one step ahead. And it wasn't just any old repair shop, mind you. Your sources mentioned a particular type of mast crucial for warships then, readily available in Gibraltar. That kind of resource, right at your fingertips, was a game changer.
You're right, I totally forgot about that detail. It really shows you how even something seemingly small could have a huge impact. Okay, so we've got Gibraltar as this bustling naval base, but one name we can't forget, Admiral Horatio Nelson. Legendary figure, and it sounds like Gibraltar has a part in his story too, huh?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, Nelson himself used Gibraltar as his base of operations before the epic showdown we all know, the Battle of Trafalgar, 1805.
And just to refresh everyone's memory, that's the one where Nelson dealt a decisive blow to Napoleon's navy, right?
You've got it. And it all circles back to Gibraltar. Before that battle, Nelson used this well-protected harbor to gather his intel, get those ships in tip-top shape, and make sure his men were ready for anything.
Talk about a strategic advantage. Okay, so we've got the ships, the supplies, the strategies all being hashed out in Gibraltar. But it sounds like this place was way more than just a military base. It was practically a city in its own right.
You said it. The sources paint a pretty vivid picture, let me tell you. Merchants, diplomats, spies, you name it, all rubbing shoulders in Gibraltar's harbor. It was a melting pot of information, intrigue, and all this right under Napoleon's nose.
Wow, so not just strategically vital, but a hotbed of espionage too. You can practically hear the whispers, the clandestine deals going down.
And all of this while under constant threat. See, Napoleon desperately wanted Gibraltar. He knew taking it would be a huge blow to Britain. Supply lines cut, morale shattered.
Which leads us straight to those defenses, right? Those incredible tunnels I've heard so much about. Were they really as impressive as they say?
Oh, the great siege tunnels. Now they're a testament to military ingenuity if I've ever seen one. The British took these existing cave networks and thought, why not expand? Carved out miles of underground passages right through the heart of the rock itself.
So it wasn't just tunnels. It was like this whole underground world hidden away inside the rock. What were they actually doing with all those tunnels?
They're way more than just some escape route. We're talking moving troops, ammunition, even artillery pieces, all completely under wraps, hidden from enemy eyes.
Can you imagine, though, the element of surprise? Cannons popping up out of nowhere, raining fire down on Napoleon's ships.
You've got it. And it's not even just about what they built down there. One of your sources, it mentions this clever little deception tactic, ventilation shafts, disguised as well.
A placement?
Right. The French, they'd waste precious ammunition on these decoys. Meanwhile, the Brits are sitting pretty, defenses completely untouched. Talk about a psychological blow.
So not only could they withstand a siege, they were outsmarting their opponents at every turn. Makes you wonder if Napoleon ever really stood a chance against Gibraltar at all.
Played a part in his downfall, that's for sure. And remember, while all this is happening at sea, the Napoleonic Wars, they're raging on land too.
Right, the Peninsular War. Our listener included some details on how Gibraltar played a part in all that. See, it wasn't just about the Navy after all.
Exactly. The conflict in Spain and Portugal, it might seem a world away from Gibraltar, but its impact definitely felt. Think about it, the logistics of keeping an army going on foreign soil. Supplies, reinforcements, getting the wounded out. Gibraltar, safely in British hands. That was a lifeline for Wellington's forces.
It was like having a giant, fully stocked supply closet just across the water. Pretty handy. But how'd that actually play out in the war? Any specific examples?
Oh, absolutely. Your sources mention this critical moment in 1811. Wellington's army, heavily reliant on those supply lines running through Gibraltar, they're facing a potential shortage. Gunpowder.
Uh-oh. Not good.
No, not at all. It could have crippled their whole offensive.
So what happened?
Well, Gibraltar saves the day, that well-stocked harbor we talked about. A large shipment of gunpowder specifically meant for Wellington's army, it arrives just in the nick of time.
Talk about a close call.
Right. This allowed the British to keep up their siege of Badajoz, which, as it turns out, became a turning point in the whole Peninsular War.
Wow. So who knows what would happen without Gibraltar? It just goes to show wars aren't just won on the battlefield. It's the logistics, the supply lines, those secure bases.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And it's not just about the physical stuff either. Your sources, they also highlight how important the intelligence gathering was, all run out of Gibraltar.
Spies, like something out of a movie.
Exactly. Intercepting French communications, infiltrating their ranks, feeding that crucial intel back to Wellington. All of this helped the British stay one step ahead, anticipate French movements, and plan their campaigns much more effectively.
You've got these shadowy figures slipping in and out of Gibraltar's bustling harbor, carrying secrets that could decide the fate of nations. It really makes you realize this unsinkable fortress, it was so much more than just a base.
Couldn't agree more. It was a hub of information, a launch pad for all sorts of covert operations, and a symbol of British defiance in the face of Napoleon's ambitions. And its influence, it didn't end with the Napoleonic Wars either.
So what happened to Gibraltar after Napoleon met his end? Did it just fade into the background? Was its moment in the sun over?
Quite the opposite. If anything, you could say its role in the Napoleonic Wars, it cemented its legend.
It's almost like its legend just grew even stronger once the fighting stopped. Why was that?
Well, think back to that image of Gibraltar we talked about, the unsinkable fortress, a symbol of British naval power. That image, it only intensified after the Napoleonic Wars, became a cornerstone of their global empire for over a century afterward.
So it's like they could point to Gibraltar and say, see, we held this against Napoleon. Don't even try us.
Exactly. It projected this aura, strength, dominance in the region. That victory against Napoleon, with Gibraltar playing such a crucial role, it really cemented its place in military history, solidified its strategic importance for decades to come. But I think it's important to remember, this story, like most in history, it's complicated. Gibraltar's role, it wasn't without controversy.
Oh, now you've got me interested. What kind of controversies are we talking about?
Well, Gibraltar, it became this point of tension between Britain, Spain, even France, long after the Napoleonic Wars were over, Spain especially, they always maintained that Gibraltar was rightfully theirs. This disagreement, it led to all sorts of diplomatic headaches, even threats of military action over the centuries.
It's almost like this, this prized possession everyone wants, but everyone's got a different opinion on who it rightfully belongs to.
Perfect analogy. And it's that tension, that strategic importance that makes Gibraltar so fascinating, so contested. It wasn't just a military base, it was a symbol of power, a bargaining chip in international relations, a source of national pride.
It's really amazing how a place, a relatively small place, could have such a huge role on the world stage. So looking back, what would you say is the most important takeaway here about Gibraltar's impact?
I think the biggest takeaway is just how interconnected everything was. Yes, Gibraltar was this fortress, this naval base, a supply depot, but it was also this hub of information, this launching point for diplomacy, a symbol of resistance against Napoleon's ambitions. Its significance, it went way beyond its size. And its influence, it reverberated throughout Europe and even beyond.
It really makes you wonder, in today's world, right? Satellites, cyber warfare. Could a place like Gibraltar still be that important? Or is it destined to just be a footnote in the history books?
That's a million-dollar question, isn't it? The nature of warfare, it's definitely changed, that's for sure. But geography hasn't. Controlling key locations, access to those maritime routes, that's still as relevant as ever.
So even if we're not going to see, massive naval battles like Trafalgar anytime soon, that underlying importance of strategic positioning, it still holds true.
Absolutely. But it's definitely more nuanced now. Think about cybersecurity, for example. A modern-day Gibraltar, it might not be a physical fortress. It might be digital. A country with strong cyber offenses, able to protect its infrastructure, project influence online.
So instead of cannons and warships, it's firewalls and data streams. Makes you think.
Different kind of battlefield, that's for sure. But the fundamentals, they're the same. Strategic advantage, control of vital resources, the ability to defend your interests. Gibraltar might be a reminder of past conflicts, but its story, it holds some valuable lessons. Lessons for understanding the challenges we face today and the challenges to come.
What a deep dive this has been. A huge thank you to you, dear listener, for bringing us this captivating topic to explore. We've journeyed through strategic brilliance, human drama, explored the lasting legacy of Gibraltar, a place that, despite its size, has undeniably shaped the course of history. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep into the fascinating stories that surround us.